to Justice Quest.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and faithful listeners all over the country, I hope. Greetings in the name of the Lord. We'll go ahead and we got something kind of different today. And I want to go ahead and call your attention to a DVD I ran across in a pawn shop here in Grand Forks. We went ahead and I was in there one day, and this is a DVD. And if you can find it, and it's available on Movies Unlimited and eBay, it's called Food Inc. It's an expose about how our nation's food supply is now controlled by a handful of corporations that often put profit ahead of consumer health. And it shows you how the fast food industry was driving this to go ahead and produce more product faster, cheaper, blah, 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 and you know the drill. But anyway, it's definitely a good look into now. I went ahead and looked at this last night, and I've seen it about 4 or 5 times, and I am shocked. I am absolutely shocked. In one of the interviews, this farmer, soybean farmer, is discussing about Monsanto, and he mentions in there, and this is how information comes across my desk. It comes from all sorts of sources, and this is one of them, about how the scales of justice. You got Lady Justice there with a blindfold on, and whoever piles most cash on the scales wins. And that's what I like. And they detailed how Tyson Chicken is doing the same thing, and just goes on and on and on. And it's all done because we want fast food, and how it's actually detrimental to our health, When you throw in the cost of diabetes and other health problems, this is what we're kind of facing today. And I went ahead and I made the decision that I was going to go once a year and buy a quarter beef from my local rancher, and he was going to have it processed for me. I know where my beef is coming from. I've seen his farm. I know his cows are out there grazing on pasture, not being fed dead chickens and chicken manure and whatever else comes across. And we go ahead, and this is all detailed in this movie, so I highly recommend it if you want to go ahead and learn more about the world around us and how big business is actually destroying America. Along with our politicians. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But, that's just one of the things that I go ahead and bring to the table. Anyway, we're going to be talking about today is unprosecuted crimes. What the big wigs that I'm talking about, presidents, secretaries of state, and everything else has gone ahead and committed, and why they're not being prosecuted. All right, because we got a Department of Justice that doesn't want to do it because they're busy taking bribes to go ahead and cover up for those who do it. And you have the justice system who goes in and says stupid things like, "Oh yeah, well he can't be prosecuted for what he did as president." Well, as president, he shouldn't be doing anything that he needs to be prosecuted for. It was a sad day in America when Bill Clinton. My head's ready to explode already, but I'm having fun with this. When Bill Clinton walked in to address the UN during the Monica Lewinsky affair, and I'm double intender there, but all of the third world dictators around the world gave him a standing ovation because he was doing what they were doing. And I hung my head in shame can't believe he won re-election. I said, there's absolutely no way with everything he's done that he could be elected president again. But yet somehow, and this is what this statement goes ahead and kind of covers it all. Somebody was asked about why did you back Bill Clinton after he's done so much, and the person replied, well, we'd rather deal with the devil that we know than the devil we don't know. Yeah. And I'm saying, like, you got to be kidding me. That's a pretty flimsy excuse. And you're choosing between the lesser of two evils? That's still evil. That is still evil. In Psalm 34, our scripture today is Psalm 33:5, and it goes like this. God loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of the goodness of the Lord. Yeah, and it takes a few evil characters to ruin it all. We have big business on one hand. We got a crooked government that's receiving bribes behind the back. I mean, how else is a congressman who's making $174,000 a year going to amass a $20 million or $200 million fortune in Congress? That is a question that's been floating on Facebook for years now. And we have to wake up to the fact, here's how it works. And what I think is that, all right, let's say your congressman gets elected to Congress, all right, Senate, House of Representatives, whatever. And he brings along his wife with him to Washington, D.C., and they live in Washington, D.C., get an apartment and whatnot. Well, some big corporation goes in and calls up his office and says, yeah, we'll give your wife a job, be glad to, yeah. But on the wife's first day, they said, you've been given this position, so that your husband will go ahead and vote for, legislation that would kind of be beneficial to us. I'm not saying that's how it works, but, that's pretty close to it. This has got to stop. One of the things in this movie called Food Incorporated is they pay their slaughterhouse workers and the lowest wage they possibly can, but they pump millions into lobbying Congress to relax the laws. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. But we're going to be talking today about unprosecuted crimes. Things that have happened, and then we'll get back to this here in a few minutes. But we're going to be talking about unprosecuted crimes today. Let's talk about Benghazi. Nobody ever went to jail for that. Nobody ever, questions were asked, but no answers given. No prosecutions ever happened. All right. The outpost at Benghazi was screaming for help, and the military commander in Italy was about to send F-16s over when he was told by Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama to stand down. A number of years ago, a little thing crossed my desk that, that was Ambassador Stevens was actually sent over there to retrieve missiles that Hillary Clinton sold to the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, those missiles found their way into Iraq. And one of those missiles was used to shoot down a helicopter, and it didn't go off. It misfired. Well, they traced back the serial number, and it was tied back to her. Now, that's just a theory, all right? But that sounds feasible to me, because when Muslim Brotherhood went ahead and first came to think, there was the Muslim Spring. Anybody remember that except me? I'm just kind of wondering. We go ahead and Hillary Clinton was out there saying, we will not do business with the Muslim Brotherhood. Yet 6 months later, there she was doing business. She was caught doing business with the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah. So much for, yeah, these people, they say one thing in public and they do something different in private. They want to go ahead and keep their squeaky clean reputations. All right, in Psalm 34, verse 13, speaking of which, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking God. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. In verse 16, the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. I think that time is coming. I think that time is coming. But let's get back to our subject. Yeah, Hillary's server. Yeah, when it broke that she was using an unsecured server, she went ahead and bleached it and started smashing it up with hammers. That's destruction of evidence. That is cover up. Oh yeah, nothing to see here. Move on, move on. That's where that came from. People, we have got to start holding these people accountable. And I'll get to the Republicans here in a minute. To the Republicans, I'll say, you are squandered an excellent opportunity. Another unprosecuted crime was a bag of cocaine at the White House. Yeah, you're going to tell me that the cameras were down at the White House? How come every time a crime happens, the cameras go down? That's something that's got to be asked. The White House is one of the most secure places on earth. You actually expect me to believe that the cameras were down at that time? Or the person who left that bag of cocaine there? Now, come on now. Hunter Biden is a coke addict, known. He's a cokehead. He shouldn't even been granted access to the White House in the first place. If I go ahead and go on a White House tour, I have to go ahead and pass through metal detectors, this and that, and a whole background check, the whole 9 yards. If they find an empty cartridge casing in my pockets when they do a search on me, I'm going to be in interrogation for 6 hours. Come on now. And we're going to go ahead and talk about government agencies that they don't do their job. All right, they should be done away with. If the Secret Service can't tell us that, then they should be done away with. Yeah. Oh, people, I am so fed up. It's not even funny. My anger at this government cannot be overstated. So a bag of cocaine was left at the White House, and nobody knows who did it. Yeah, they kind of stumbled over that one. Right. Russia hoax. Yeah. For 2 years, all we heard was bombshell, 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 bombshell. It went on and on and on. And those of us who went ahead and saw what was happening, we knew that, that Donald Trump was innocent, because it was just the left going after him any way they could. Then the Russia Steele document come about, and all of a sudden, nothing happened. Because why? It was Hillary Clinton who designed it in cahoots with Barack Obama. And speaking of Barack Obama, Operation Gunrunner, or Fast and Furious, as you might know it, it was nicknamed Operation Gunrunner by those of us, But the whole idea behind that was He went ahead and placed American-bought arms in the hands of drug cartels. All right, Barack Obama did this now. And the whole idea of that, after it broke, and there was 2 whistleblowers at the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms that broke the story, I believe. I think it was them. And he was going to turn around, and once those guns were used to murder American citizens, turn around and say, this is why we need to get rid of the Second Amendment. He was trying to subvert the Constitution of the United States. And yet, that's treason. That is treason. I say again, treason. He needs to be hung. We haven't executed a traitor since the Rosenbergs. Although I ran across something this morning, I said that might be changing. So Operation Gun Runner was actually designed to go ahead and subvert the Constitution of the United States. It's a little more complicated than that. And from what I understand, in the aftermath of that, 2 legitimate gun dealers went to prison for that. I can't remember the details behind that one, but it seems to me that there was 2 of them that did it. They were jailed for allowing straw purchases to happen. Well, I can't buy that because I'm a gun dealer myself, and I've got to go ahead and phone in everybody who doesn't have a concealed weapons permit. I got to get a okay from the FBI, or it's bad news, So I would like to know the rest of the story behind that. Biden's dementia. After 4 years of joking about how Biden can't form a recognizable sentence, and something's going on there, and then all of a sudden, after the thing with the auto pen came out, all of a sudden Republicans are shocked and outraged over the extent of Biden's dementia. And we knew about it back prior to 2020. In fact, the running joke was, set Joe in the mock-up of the Oval Office. He'll be fine, And we knew about it before the election. Yeah, let me go ahead and say. And Republicans are outraged? Really? Oh, come on. You guys blew it. You knew it. You can't be that close to the president and not know it. You can't be. Look. How can I put this in terms we can all understand? We all grew up in school. We all had classmates who did wrong, and we all knew they did wrong because they'd be bragging about it openly. That's exactly how Congress works. Oh yeah, so-and-so is doing this over here. Yeah. Yep. That's why when the pocketbook to USAID was going on, I got all sorts of people with their hands in the money pot. Thankfully, that was severely curtailed by Elon Musk and Donald Trump, of which Chelsea Clinton got $1.2 million out of that. I guess her $800,000 salary at that newspaper she's working for, she never does anything for, isn't enough. So if the Department of Justice isn't doing their job and the FBI is not doing their job, why are we paying taxes? Why are we paying taxes? About 25, 26 years ago, I had a tax question, and I had to call the IRS and ask them, I said, how do I file this? And they gave me the information, no problem, quick, easy solution. Thank you very much. All right, good deal. Now, I'm trying to obey the law now. Now, here about 2-3 years ago, I called the IRS, and I asked them, I said, how do I go ahead and do this? They said, we can't give out tax advice now. Oh, really? Isn't that your job? He referred me to a private attorney. Aha! So let me guess. Congress went ahead and got a bunch of tax lawyers together, and they wanted to petition. They petitioned Congress to go ahead and forbid the IRS from giving out tax advice and refer them to a private lawyer where they can charge money. Really? Well, I ain't gonna do it. You can't do it? I filed anyway, and I thought, well, not wrong. I tried to call you, In this, getting back to our DVD here, Food Incorporated, one interesting fact that came out was that this is where how information crosses my desk, and I'll go ahead and say that one more time. The FDA in 1974 did 50,000 food safety inspections, all right? In 2006, that was 1,900. Wow. More than a 95% drop or 90% drop. And the courts have shut down the FDA's power to close plants that are in violation, And part of the thing was, they go ahead and they say now that it's self-regulating. It's up to the plants to go ahead and keep their plants clean. So the courts went ahead and stripped the FDA of their regulatory teeth. In essence, and I just ran across the interesting thing that there's been 60 people get ill from raw milk in Idaho, and I'm thinking how about the 15,000 children that died because of tainted formula from China? You don't hear anything about that, or that's very hush hush. But yet raw milk always gets the blame. You know what? I was sitting there talking with somebody last night, and I says, you know what? For 11 years, my family and I drank nothing but raw milk, straight from the cow. In fact, we were sitting there milking it. We go ahead and let it cool down and just pop a top, and it was great. Nice and rich and creamy. When I joined the Air Force, I poured myself a thing of milk out of there, a little milk dispenser, and took a sip. I said, what in the world is this? And I was like, wow. But I knew the difference. And I continued, whenever I went home, I continued to drink raw milk because that's what we had. We ate our own food. We went ahead and, had our own chickens. I raised capons for 4-H. My brother raised pigs for 4-H, and we ate good. We ate good. We even started slaughtering our own cattle. But we knew where the meat products were coming from. But we don't go ahead and why is raw milk always demonized? Because raw milk is usually direct from the farmer. All right, the milk is not shipped to a big processor, where they can go ahead and reap the profits. Well, I did the math one time, and I think that the farmer gets 50 cents a gallon. At that time, I worked out the math, and they get paid. I think the last time I checked, it was like $11 or $12 a hundredweight. That's 100 pounds of milk. Now, you divide that by 6.5 pounds per gallon, all right? Let's see, let's do the math on that. Let's see, calculator. 100 divided by 6.5, which is the weight of a gallon of milk. 15 gallons, 15.3 gallons. All right. Okay, and divide by 11. I get paid $1.39 a gallon. You know, which, if you go ahead and you think about all the work that they have to put into it, they got to do the fence fixing in the spring. They got to do the haying in the summer. There's calving in the spring. You know, and all this work is done between 2 milkings a day. You know, and that's pretty poor. I mean, I would figure 2 to 3 gallons a day would be better. But milk went up to it spiked up to $19 a hundredweight. And a lot of farmers, they immediately added to their herd. Instead of selling off cattle, they went ahead and kept their females and or their cows, and they went ahead and bred them and got them milking, and the price immediately came back down. So within a year or two. So anyway, the whole idea of this show is justice quest. We're out here to go ahead and draw attention to the places where justice is being ignored. And that's not what God intended for us. It says here in the Bible that, you know, the righteous rejoice when the righteous are in power. Yeah, because we know that the rules are going to be obeyed. I went ahead and listed a whole bunch of things there that are being ignored today. And big business is right in alongside our government. So what chance do we have? I came home from work one time where I was working as a carpenter after I got out of the military. And my wife greeted me at the door and she said that, you know what, back in 1950, a carpenter made enough to afford a house, a car, and 8 kids. I went, really? Yeah, well, how did that come about? Well, when women entered the workforce, all right, the first thing that the business owner did said, we don't have to pay our men so much anymore. And ever since then, our wages have been going down. They've been giving us pay raises, but not enough to keep up with inflation. Go ahead and watch it. You know, we had a spat of inflation hit 50%. $800 set of tires are now running me $1,200. Can of gunpowder was running $30, now $45. You know, my favorite in the grocery store, my favorite brats were $1.50 for 5 of them. Now they were $2.86. An exact 50% increase. To me, inflation was 50%. And I went back to my boss and I said, hey, you know, I can't survive this. You know, I can't, 50% is a little bit much. Well, maybe we can throw you $1 or so. You know, I'm thinking, you really? These prices are not going to come down. They retreated a little bit, but, you know, not back to anywhere near where they were. And of course, ABC went ahead and was commenting on Trump's, he was asked about the 4.2% inflation this year. And of course, they said Trump loves the inflation. Yeah, that's not. I went ahead and looked at the raw footage. Trump likes a 4.2% number because it's not 50%. It's not 30%. But if you look at the price of inflation, you might get 4.2%. That's 4 cents on the dollar. And if you're making $20 an hour, all right, that's 80 cents that you should be making up. Your employer might give you 35 cents, not enough to go ahead and keep up with inflation. So little bit by little bit, we're losing spending power. And that is not right. We never should have got off the gold standard. There is a video on YouTube. Let's see if Facebook. Let's see if I can't bring it up here. Let's see. Yeah, I think I saved it. Oh yeah, there it is.
In 1910, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and Morgans met secretly on Jekyll Island. Their plan, build a system that would protect their banks from ever failing. Prior to this meeting, bankers kept lending money they didn't actually have because every loan meant more interest and hence more profit. But during the 1907 financial crisis, people tried to withdraw their savings and realized the banks didn't have the cash. So this meeting at Jekyll Island was done to create a permanent safety net. The solution they engineered was the Federal Reserve, established in 1913 as America's central bank with a special power, creating money out of thin air. Banks could still collect interest by loaning out money they didn't possess, and if their lending became too reckless, the Federal Reserve would act as their backup. They would just print the money and bail them out. This created a system where they had no risks. Heads, they make billions on interest loans. Tails, taxpayers bail them out. If you're not following Rich's lore, this is probably goodbye. If you are, welcome to seeing wealth differently.
Now that is how the Federal Reserve was created. All right. Secret meeting at Jekyll Island, and when they say that taxpayers will bail them out, isn't that exactly what happened in 2008? I'll ask the question again. Isn't that exactly what happened in 2008? Oh, the banks are too big to fail. Yep, we can't let them fail. Yep, bail out. Hence leading to quantitative easing. Yeah, let's print more money. Boom, boom, boom. The old saying that, if you borrow $100, the bank owns you, but if you borrow $1 billion, you own the bank. That's not true anymore. But let's get back to agencies. Here President Trump is going to create another agency. It's called Cyber Force. It's going to be a new branch of the military under the Army. We got to stop this. We're $39 trillion in debt. $39 trillion. I can't even comprehend that kind of money. We have to go ahead and rein in our government, and I'm trying. Hence the show. Big government is taking all over, and it's not big government, our government. It's big government, New World Order, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. The people up, them. I had on the board on the very first show here. These people need to be cut off. They need to be executed. No, they're going to be treating us like this cow on this DVD with a barcode. Yeah, what do you think the digital ID is all about? We need to go ahead and wake up, people. We need to go ahead and stand up and say, no more. The CBDC, central bank digital currency, yeah, that's The IRS can already shut down your bank account if you don't pay your taxes. They can seize your house, put a lien on it. That's way too much power. That is way too much power. If these people can't do their jobs, well, then we need to strip it away from them. And it's about time we go ahead and start reducing some of these agencies. I went ahead and said, what do we need the Department of Energy for? We've already studied energy down to its last molecule. We know how it works. We don't need them anymore. Reduce it to a station keeping, information. If somebody has a question about energy, they can go ahead and call it and look it up on the internet. We need to get rid of some of these. We're keep adding on. This has got to stop. And if we can't stop it, we are finished as a nation. We're going to have more bureaucracy. We've already got more bureaucracy than we can shake a stick at, and nobody can do anything. I went ahead and was reading something about, somebody was caught doing something wrong in the Old West. They were tried the next day and sentenced the day after. Now it takes 6 months before you even see a courtroom. The Lord is in control. This is why I'm saying these are the last days. Evil has so permeated our culture. We've got actual people that were cheering Bill Clinton for, having oral sex in the White House. I'm thinking, like, you've got to be kidding me. That is not what I want my president to do. My president's got to stand up for the American people. And I have not seen a president do that ever in my lifetime. I thought Ronald Reagan did, but, come to find out, he was just as crooked as the rest of them. But the reason we can't go ahead and shut down these agencies that are created is because Congress needs to do that, and they're not doing it. Congress has abdicated about 70% of the authority given it to it by the Constitution to another agency. They're declare war. That's been given to the President under War Powers Act. What do they do? What do they do? Right now is they bring new laws to the table, which are basically for big business, nothing for the American people. I mean, this went ahead and Kevin's law was gone ahead and featured in it, and these people are lobbying for Kevin's law to be passed, and they finally got it through both houses, and one of their presidents, I forgot who it was, shot it down. He died because of tainted meat at a fast food restaurant. He caught hemorrhagic E. coli, whatever. Hemorrhagic means it eats the body, so. We have got to go ahead and seize back control of our government. As I said in the last episode, there are countries already drawing up plans and have been for years about when America fails and falls, not if, but when. And I know a lot of you going ahead and are on my feeds on social media, and you're not paying any attention. Because I don't see any of you giving me a thumbs up or a good like or a follow or anything else like that. You could come on to justicequestlive.com and leave comment there anytime you want. Wow. And this is what we get back to. If we don't know our Bible, if we don't know the difference between right and wrong, we are going to go down, we're going to be like wild asses in the desert, going ahead and sniffing for water, not finding any, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to starve to death. That big empty hole you have in your heart is because you don't know Jesus, because you don't know God. And you better go ahead and wake up to the fact that this is what our country was founded on. So, having said that, we will probably go ahead and call it a day today. And I hope you enjoyed the episode. And feel free, justicequestlive.com. Go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to hit that like and follow button or subscribe. So when we go ahead and we talk about right and wrong, you know where I am going. I'm going right back to what God says. What God says is always right. He has no guile. He has no evil side. He is strong and he is firm. He's the one who created this world and everything that we have to enjoy it. And what is hell? Hell is the total and complete absence of God. You won't even be able to draw a clean, fresh breath of air in hell. And that's what awaits you. So with that, I'll go ahead and leave that and have a good weekend. Oh, and one other thing, I do not suffer from depression. I am not suicidal. I do not take drugs. So if I end up found in a park, dead with my hands tied behind my back and 2 shots in the back of my head, and they label it suicide, don't buy it. I didn't buy Vince Foster's death as suicide either, but that's how they labeled it. Anyway, so I'm just saying, people. Alex Jones says he's got a price on his head, and so does Donald Trump. I'm sure I won't be far behind once this goes ahead and breaks out. So with that, have a good weekend, everybody, and we shall see you later on. Thank you very much.